Hello, friends. Welcome back to month 5 of the Legit Kits Starry Night block of the month. This that you see here on the screen is what we are making for month 5. And I already told you, remember, we're triple the number of pieces we did last month. But it's the same process. You're just having lots of small pieces down here with these city lights that you're going to be working on. But don't worry, you just keep doing things the way we have been doing them. Use your large piece of fabric. Don't try to cut out all these teeny tiny little pieces and hang on to them. That's going to be way too hard. So you just keep doing what you have been doing using the larger pieces of fabric, and you're going to do just great. Now, I have had a rough couple of months, and I'm just getting over the flu, and I still have a terrible cough. So I am not going to be able to make it all the way through this month. Plus, because of all those things, I'm not finished with my blocks. But I told you I would give you a way to make some of the seams a little bit maybe thinner, not so heavy, not so thick. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we'll talk a little bit about putting the blocks so far together. And then in month 6, what we will do is make sure you see the whole completed quilt put together. And we might even have a special guest. Cross your fingers. I'm hoping we do, that will help us talk about quilting, our beautiful work of art, once we are finished with it next month. So this is what we're doing. We're just going to keep on doing like we've been doing. So let me show you with this piece here, piece D2M. The piece has what, 5 pieces of fabric coming together right down here in this corner. Now I've already sewn 1 and 2 on to the piece, and I'm ready to do the next seam, seam 3. But I want to show you one way of spreading out the bulk of these seams. Now, I learned this from a good friend quite a while ago, but I will be honest, I don't use it all the time because I use my fabulous Euro steam iron with all this dry steam. I get really flat seams. And if I do struggle with bulky seams, I will use that acorn pressing pen and get them a little bit flatter. So I don't do this often, but I wanted to make sure you had a technique that you could use if you were struggling with bulky seams or you didn't have a dry steam iron or acorn products or things like that. So what we're going to do, as you see, I have piece 1 and 2 sewn here together. And what we're going to do is pull our pattern piece back. Okay, so I'm going to try and show this to you a little bit better. Let me bring the camera down since we're working on this board here. So again, I've sewn 1 and 2 together. You can see them here. We're going to pull the paper back. Now, if you hold on to your stitches and pull the paper, you can pull it back without ripping seams, and you can pull it back without tearing your paper. But if you've done that a couple of times, or if you're afraid you're going to tear your paper, just grab some matte Scotch tape and put over that seam. And you can see mine is already split. So it's not really a bad idea for me to go ahead and put a piece of tape right over that seam. And that's going to hold it all nice and neat together. And I don't have to worry about tearing my pattern. So then we have pulled this piece back past this intersection where all those pieces are going to meet up. And you can see what I've already done. You can see here, there's the gray piece that is piece number 1. The black is piece number 2. I just made sure I am past this intersection, and I just did a little snip right here with my really small, tiny little scissors and cut to separate those seams. Now, don't cut through your seam because then you're going to have a hole. You don't want a hole. So cut just a little bit so that you can press that seam open, or press, half of your seam going to the left, because when we press them, both of our seams are under there. And we're going to lay these flat. Now you could take it to your iron, give it a little press here so that it lays flat. And as you can see, you've got your seam split, half of it going one side, the rest going to the other. So these are both of those 2 pieces folded over to the right. These 2 pieces are folded to the left because we've already ironed those seams down. Now, once you've done this, go ahead and fold your paper back and you are ready to add piece number 3. So let me find piece number 3. So here's my fabric for RZ. And I'm just going to line things up just like I always do. So I'm going to trim this with my 1/4 inch seam. You can see it's already pretty close to a 1/4 inch of a seam here. But I'm just going to cut that little tail off. Get rid of that. And now I have this straight edge that I can line it up on a piece of my fabric. And just for ease sake, I'm just going to stick it down here in the corner. I know that that piece covers all of the piece that's under here that I need. So I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and sew it real quick. All right, so I sewed that seam down. I got a little it's right here on the end. It shifted on me, but that's okay. It's under that seam. We're going to be just fine. So now we can fold this back, press it open just like we normally do. So let me take it to the iron. All right, so I've pressed that down, and filling of this, it is very thin right here at this intersection because not all of my points, not all of my fabric is going the same way. I've got some of it going this way, some of it going this way. So it is very nice and thin. So then we can trim this and get it ready for our next piece. So just like we always do, I'll pull this back so I can fold on my next sew line and trim that off. I'm finished with RZ. So now my next color is going to be TW. So I can try to do that same thing and see if I can shift the seam allowances one way or another. So if I pull this back again, oopsie, there we go. So I've pulled it back enough. I'm starting to rip my paper, so I'm going to stop. I've pulled it back enough that I'm past this seam allowance. But if you look at this piece right here, it's going to be really hard to manipulate this seam. The only thing I really can do is get rid of this little bit of bulk on this other side of the seam. You move this little piece of paper so it makes it easier for you to see. So because these seams are crossing each other like this, it's not going to be super easy. Actually, I could still come down. Let me think. Let me think this through. Like I said, I don't do it very often. Yeah, I could still fold that over. Yep. So you really have 2 options. You can cut the seam right here where my tweezers are and fold that piece over. Or you can come down like we did before. We're going to go down beneath where those pieces meet, give it a nice little trim, and then fold this piece of the seam back over to the left. Okay, now this is all on the underneath, so none of this is going to show on our top side. We're just trying to spread out those seams a little bit. All right, so let me press this so it lays down. So now that seam is nice and flat that you can see right there. Most of our seam is going over here to the right, but we've got this little bit going to the left. So then when you put your paper back down, and I am really tearing my paper. So I'm just going to put another little piece of matte Scotch tape, and don't worry, your iron can go over that if it's matte and it's not going to melt it. But most of the time you're ironing on this side anyway. So I've put my tape, my seams are folded back. They're nice and flat, and so I can go on and do my next piece. Oh, that's super flat. So as you can see, this takes quite a bit of effort. But if you have a lot of seams coming together in one place, it might be worth the effort to spread out some of those seam allowances. So let's go ahead and look at piece number 4, which is TW, right here. So I'm going to pull that tag off of there because I'm just working with a small piece, but it was TW. So we're going to do just like we've been doing. We're going to line this piece up, and we're going to stitch down that seam. All right, so we've stitched down that seam. We're going to iron it back open, press it back open. Oh, look at that. Pretty, pretty point. That's so lovely. And it is really flat because that seam allowance is dispersed all through there. So I know you can't feel it on my screen, but maybe you can see it's super, super flat. And I've not even ironed it yet. So let me press it real quick. All right, here we go. Super duper flat. Little bit of our little points, our connections there. We're ready to move on to the next piece. So remember, tiny little stitches indeed. We're going to trim to our next sew line, and I'm just going to trim all that off. Stick my sticker back on because I can probably use that little piece again. All right, and our next piece is ME, which again, I'm using my scrap, so I've got another small piece right here. So but before we do that, let's look at this. We've already dispersed some of that seam allowance. Now, if I start, I want to do it from the paper side. So let me pull that seam back. Almost there. So we're not pulling out our seam, we're just removing our paper. We're pulling our paper back so that we get past this intersection. So I pulled my paper back. That's where the intersection is. I could actually, this is folded over really nicely right here. So I don't really see any reason to try and fold this back, because this is folded from the last seam. So on this one, I think we're good. I don't think we need to do anything different to it. We're ready to go ahead and add our last piece. Now, you would not do what I'm showing you on every single piece. So I'm going to trim that a little bit. So you're going to do it, if you've got 5 or 6 pieces, you'll do it on 2 or 3 of the pieces. You won't do it on every little piece. It's going to start really tearing up your pattern, and it's going to be kind of hard for you to manage. But a couple of them distributes the seam allowances just enough to make it really flat for you. All right, so I'm going to stitch this next piece in. Thank you for your patience with not moving the cameras around. It's been quite a lot going on here lately. So I'm not taking the time to switch cameras on you, but I appreciate your patience. I know you know what I'm doing over there because you're experts by now. So I have done my seam here. We're going to fold it back, press it down. We still have this beautiful, beautiful point here. It's kind of hard to see because all these colors are so very similar. But let me iron that over. All right, I gave it a good iron with my steam iron over there, and this is so flat. It does not feel like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of fabrics going on right here. Now, if I were to pull this back again and look and see, well, first let me go ahead and trim this. All right, so I've got that piece trimmed, and all I need to do now is add in the OZ. And because this is really flat right here, I don't even feel like I need to bend this back and move some of my seams one way or another, because that's so very flat. So just doing that on a couple of pieces right here at the beginning is a great way to reduce a little bit of bulk in your seams. Now, it does take you a little more time. Yes, it does. But to get a seam this flat, that's amazing. And it's well worth the time investment if you were to do that. So I'm only going to demonstrate on this one piece. I feel like I need to start coughing again. So I'm going to do the rest of what I wanted to accomplish with you. I'll finish this piece by adding the other piece. It doesn't really affect this bulky seam that we were working with anyway. So try that out. Try it with this piece if you want. Do a couple of them like I did. And if you need to stop the video and rewind it so you can get a close-up look at what I was really doing, please feel to do that. That's the beauty of YouTube. I don't have to show you a million times because you can stop and rewind and see exactly what I did on this piece. And let me know if your piece comes out as nice and flat as this. I know my long arm is going to have no trouble going over that seam. All right, so try that out on a couple of pieces, especially where you have 5 or 6 seams or more coming together. That's a good piece to try it on. So D2M, give it a try. Let me know what you think. All right, now going back to our month 5 that we have here. These are all of our completed blocks. So I pretty much have this half of my block done. The piece that I was showing you is over here on my D2 piece somewhere along this way. Looks like it's right around this area if I'm basing it on colors. So what I want to point out to you is when you are joining your 4 blocks, so if we divide this in half both ways, you've got your C1 and 2, your D1 and 2. When you join them, you're going to join them just like you normally do, in twos and in twos. I would join these two, so C1 and D1 together, and then when you are finished, I would join D2. I had to stop and think for a minute. D2, C2, sorry, and D2 together. Now, what I want to point out, and if you watch Nina quilted that, her videos as well, she's doing the Starry Night block of the month as well. She pointed this out. So if you want to see it in action, she's ahead of the game and has her blocks finished. But when you are joining these two sections together, or really this section right here, D1 and D2 together. The most important thing is to get this spire or the steeple of your church building to line up correctly. So if you want to just pin this section here where those two blocks are going to meet, pin those together and stitch that down and make sure you've got that lined up perfectly. Then you can go back and finish sewing the rest of the block. Right, so I want to pull up the 4 blocks to kind of review that with you. So we would sew C1 and C2 together. This is going to go together really well. Of course, there are points that we're going to want to line up, but if they're off a teeny smidgen, it's really not going to make a huge difference. But what I was talking about is when we join C2 and D2 together, this steeple of the church here, it's going to be really, really important that that is lined up really well. So when you are stitching these 2 blocks together, just pin this section right here, stitch it across first, and take a look at it and see, does that steeple line up perfectly? If this point is off a teeny tiny bit, it's really not going to make a big difference. This point is not going to make a big difference. If this is shifted over, then you're really going to notice a difference and it's going to throw off that whole section of the quilt. So pay particular attention to this section right here when you're stitching those blocks together. Right, so depending upon what you did last month would determine if you can go ahead and add month 5 to all the pieces you've already sewn so far. If you recall last month, I said you can go ahead and sew this top half of our quilt together. Normally we sew in blocks of 2, then cubes of 4, and then we put 8 pieces together. If you've already did that, great. You've got this full row A and B all put together. If you did not do that, I would suggest you go ahead and take your A1 and 2, B1 and 2, C1 and 2, D1 and 2, and put this half of your quilt together. And the reason why I'm saying that is it's going to be easier to line up this long seam here going down the shorter side of our quilt when we're all done. But if you have already sewn the top half together, that's no worries at all. We're just going to hold on to month 5 then. And when we finish month 6 next month, we'll sew these pieces all together as well. So it's not a problem at all. Right? If you have not, though, sewn everything you've done thus far together, go ahead and work on this section of your quilt. So A1 and 2 all the way to D1 and 2. So you're putting month 5 together with what you've already sewn right above it. Okay, I hope that that makes sense. If not, don't worry. Ask me questions if you have them, and I'm happy to answer you back. So next month, we're going to work on month 6, which is this bottom section. So if we look at our finished product here, month 6 is over here, this corner. So while we do have a lot of pieces, we do not have near as many small pieces as we had down here. So it's almost like my friend Nina says again, quilting downhill. We tackled the tough stuff this month, and next month we're going to have this easy part. So my goal for next month is to help you walk through any pieces of month 6 that you may find challenging. I doubt you're going to find anything challenging in month 6. So you go ahead and get it when you get it and get started on it and do everything like we've been doing it. If you do have trouble, of course, and I haven't got the video yet, please feel free to reach out to me and I am happy to help you. And hopefully by month 6, I'll have my month 5 finished as well. And we'll talk about putting that full, beautiful finished quilt together. And we'll have pictures of it. And I would love for you to share with me your pictures of your finished product too, because I would love to see it. My goal, cross your fingers again, I'm hoping that I can get a wonderful quilter who quilts for legit a lot. And I've seen her Starry Night finished and quilted, and it's stunning. I really want to pay her to do my quilting. So I don't know if she will jump on that, but hopefully she will. But my goal is to have her here with us next month so she can show us how she quilted hers. So stay tuned, and thank you for joining me on this short video for month 5. Let me know if you have questions, and stay legit. I'll see you next time.